Hi there. In this video, I'm going to discuss how to measure the resolution of your camera lens by analyzing photographs of a resolution chart. The MTF of the MTFMapper program I use stands for Modulation Transfer Function. The MTF measures how quickly an edge in the resolution chart changes from white to black. The quicker this white-black transition is, the higher the resolution of the lens. Even the best lenses have a small gray zone in between the white and black edge. If you were to use JPEGs instead of raw photos of the test charts, the edges in the image are artificially sharpened, and this is why using JPEGs would ruin the measurements. The MTFMapper program measures a bunch of test chart targets all at once, separating the measurements into both sagittal and meridional directions. If you don't accurately focus the lens or align the camera sensor to be parallel to the resolution chart being photographed, the measurements will end up being lower than what the lens is actually capable of doing. DSLR cameras are probably going to need lens focus calibration as well, and the MTFMapper program can help you there. I had discussions with MTFMapper program author Franz Vandenberg about temporarily attaching a mirror to the chart to be able to see your reflection when your camera is correctly lined up with the chart. He came up with a really great idea of using strong magnet made from neodymium to temporarily hold the mirror on the chart and then remove it after the camera is lined up. You can get close to perfect alignment using a mirror's reflection. I'm going to start this video by discussing where to get the MTFMapper program and the provided files that are used for printing the test charts. Test charts have little black targets with edges lined up in both sagittal and meridional directions, which I'll demonstrate later on. Next, the video will show you how you can convert the raw photos of test charts into the DNG digital negative format in the case that the MTFMapper program doesn't understand your own camera's raw format. You should look on the internet for the size of your camera's sensor pixel dimensions, which are measured in microns. You'll be shown where to enter this information into the MTFMapper program. I'll then demonstrate the various kinds of resolution measurement plots that MTFMapper can generate from the test chart pictures. Then I'll give you some tips on how to line up your camera to photograph the test chart using a mirror, and tips on printing and mounting the test charts in addition to attaching the alignment mirror. Okay, here we go. I've been using the free MTFMapper program written by Franz Vandenberg for over 10 years now. This program was even used by NASA to measure lenses that they used on their Mars rover called Perseverance. Before you can measure resolution, you need a few things set up in advance. First, download and install the MTFMapper from the site that I show here. It's called sourceforge.net projects MTFMapper. Beyond getting the program, it also has a bunch of PDF files you can get at this site. And these include resolution test charts. And in this list, the ones that have grid in their names are resolution testing charts. Here's a more modern chart that Franz designed. It has a bunch of trapezoids in it, and they're all aligned so that half the edges point toward the center of the chart, and those are called sagittal direction. The ones that are perpendicular to those spokes are called meridional, and the software makes measurements of both of those. The little dots in this plot are called fiducials, and those give the software information about the orientation of the chart relative to your camera sensor. In case there's some sort of a misalignment, it can give you some information about that. So once you have these charts and have decided which one you want to use, you'll need to print and mount it. Again, some of these charts are not for resolution testing, and the details are inside the documentation of his program for which charts are used for which purpose. I'd recommend that you print the chart as big as you can because it'll allow you to shoot from farther away at a more realistic working distance. I printed my big test charts on a large format inkjet printer at 1200 dpi using what's called satin finish paper. Very smooth, no texture to give the most accurate information. And I'll show you a little program that you may or may not need. It's free from Adobe called the Digital Negative Converter, or DNG. You need to be shooting with raw format photographs when you want to do good resolution testing. The other kinds of photos like JPEG have artificial sharpening in them, and they ruin the measurement results that you would get, and they'd be bogus. Some negative formats, for instance, my Nikon Z8 uses a format I prefer called high efficiency. The MTFMapper program doesn't understand that format, but I can give it to this Adobe DNG converter program, and it will make a digital negative format of picture that the MTFMapper is happy with. Now that I've explained how you get suitable test charts for it, once you start the MTFMapper program, the first thing you need to do is go to the settings preferences, and you need to customize the settings in here for the camera that you're using. In this case, my Nikon Z8 has a 4.35 micron pixel dimension, so I set that. That is what allows line pairs per millimeter units to be used in the various plots. For the MTF contrast plots, which are the most common way on the web that you see lens resolution, they usually have 10 and 30 line pairs per millimeter mentioned in there. This software lets you have 3 plots, and so I've configured this to be 10, 30, and 50. Now, none of this would work if I didn't have the correct pixel size set up over here. Just accept the settings. Now let me go and actually open up some of the photographs of the test charts and analyze them. So I go over to where there's the DNG files. I select a few. I can use the usual things like hold down the shift button and select a range. I can use the control button, select some others. When I've had all the ones that I want to evaluate selected, then I'll just go over and open them and start the program running. All right, the first one's already completed. So I can start looking at these while it's still busy crunching other ones. If I look at an annotated plot, in this case it's a 24 millimeter lens at f/16. I can zoom in it if I hold the control button down and use the mouse wheel, and you get an idea what the resolution looks like at f/16 for this lens. And I can go out to the corners, scrolling around. I can scroll in as much as I need. F/16, those resolution numbers look pretty bad. Let me pick another plot. In this case, I'll choose a profile plot. So this is at f/22, which is even worse resolution because of diffraction. You can see that the average in here is about, 27, 28 line pairs per millimeter, and the little red dots with individual measurements. I'm looking at a picture I did 34.5 millimeter zoom at f4, and it looks like the resolution went up to maybe, 73 or so. Again, the measurements are separated out into meridional and sagittal, and you can see that corners of this lens have a lot less resolution than the middle, which is to be expected. If I want to look at this in 3 dimensions, which looks sort of like a terrain map where the higher elevations are the higher resolution, that's another way you can evaluate the resolution for your lens. If I go to a lens profile plot, that is the stuff I mentioned earlier where I configured it so that I'll get 3 different profiles of the 10, 30, and 50 line pairs per millimeter, and it separates out the sagittal as the solid lines and the meridional is the dashed lines. After you can see your reflection and you get completely lined up on the target by looking in the mirror, you can go ahead and then remove it to take the final photo where you refocus on the target. You can see there's a couple of, they're called neodymium magnets, disc magnets that are stuck on with double stick tape on the rear of the mirror, and there's another of the same kind of magnet stuck on the back of the chart. The chart was printed on a large format inkjet printer on satin finished paper that doesn't have any texture. The print was dry mounted and then attached to a wood frame that keeps everything nice and flat and it won't warp. I also put some aircraft cable on the back of this to be able to hang it off of something. And here you can see the neodymium magnet that's stuck on the rear of the chart. Here's an example of a small chart of a little different design that has some orientation fiducials, they're called, that Franz also designed, a newer kind of a chart. You want to line up the shot so you're just framing the chart, and you want to also make sure that you're using either a self-timer or a wired remote or some way to eliminate any kind of vibrations from the shot. When you can see yourself in the mirror, then you know you're perfectly lined up. The sensor's parallel to the chart and you're ready to take the shot as soon as you remove the mirror from the chart. I have a little summary to collect together some of the more important details. Thanks for watching.